simultaneously on my Facebook and I think on my YouTube at the same time. I've never done this before. Have no idea how it's going to turn out. But here's my concern. If all of my fans from Facebook show up and all of my fans from YouTube show up at the same time, we could have fives of tens of people here. Maybe probably less, maybe more, who knows? So I don't know if the internet is able to handle that sheer amount of bandwidth that all this might take. Okay? Just so you know. Also, a few other things you should know. I have been drinking, and I will continue to drink throughout the broadcast. Hello, Justin. I see your comment. Hello, Barbie. Hey, ya. I was just saying, I've been drinking, in case you can't tell, and I'm going to continue to drink. I'm also probably going to smoke cigarettes because I get nervous, like live, right? So I smoke. Plus, I've been drinking, so I smoke. Plus, I live alone now in a house full of empty despair and ever-flowing tears. So what harms the cigarette? So there's going to be drinking, there's going to be smoking, there's going to be adult language. I encourage you to join in. Oh, I'm focused, Barbie. I'm focused. I don't like broadcasting live, but I do like broadcasting live because it's like I'm in your home without actually having to come to your home. Because I don't want to come there and you don't want me there. Because it could get awkward. That's all I'm saying. See, the cat's about to jump on the laptop. All right. I see it. But think about it. What if I come to your home, right? I'm just saying this could happen. What if I come to your home, men, women, you don't have to worry. But men, what if I come to your home and you're like, oh, I got to run to the store. Like, Rob, you mind, just hanging out here? It's like, yeah, sure. No problem. Right? And then like your wife rolls up on me. She's like, hey, I heard you're a writer. It's like, yeah, I wrote like 2 books, Oh, I heard it's like stories and poetry. I've always wanted a man's man that writes poetry. And it gets awkward. Like, I wouldn't do anything because I'm not like that. But your wife, bitch, there's no telling what she might do. Because we've all heard, like, everybody knows. What if she rolls up on me and she's like, man, here writers fuck like champs. Because that's how I've always heard it. Like, that's what they're known for. So if your wife knows that, it's just better that we do this on camera and not actually in your home. That's all I'm saying. So I'm going to try to do both of this at the same time, like focus on what I'm saying and also read the comments. Well, thank you, Barbie. That's very sweet. Here's my man, Justin Goodrow. What's up, buddy? I don't know if I'm supposed to acknowledge everybody as they show up or acknowledge nobody. Like, I could either be friendly or just be completely like, I'm too good. But I like to acknowledge people. Thanks for stopping by. So a couple things. This is going to be long. It's going to be drawn out. Didn't come with much of a plan, if you couldn't tell. Okay. Here's what I thought we would do. I'm going to read a story because that's a fun way to fucking spend a Saturday night, right? I'm going to read a story from my newest book, which just hit Amazon a couple days ago. I probably should plug it. DistractionAction Volume 2, because it's my second book. But that is fresh, available on Amazon, and it's pretty good. So I was going to read a story called Pass the Pancakes. but it's a very long story. It's a very depressing story. It's a true story, obviously, right? Like, I don't even know if I should call it a story. It's more like a memoir kind of thing. But it's about divorce. It's about death. My mother passing away. I don't know why I said that all excited, like death. It's divorce, it's death, it's midlife crisis, it's depression. It's some weird sex stuff in there, like from the depression. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but it's a thing, I guess. So I was going to read that. I said, oh, what fun would that be? You know, it's not entertaining. Watching a grown man cry on camera, that's not entertaining. So what I thought I would do is, instead of reading like the sad, depressing story, I would read the story that's most likely to upset people. It's a religious story, which I don't think is a big deal in South Carolina. I don't think people are that religious down here, right? But it is a funny story, mostly. But it's also saying some things that some people may not like. Oh, Taylor Daniels in the room. Taylor's here. Taylor, she's not going to like this. She's going to leave the room right away. Taylor wrote the foreword in my book. She wrote a piece with me in the first book. She wrote my foreword in the second book. She's kind of supposed to be here, but she couldn't make it because of family things. But she's sorely missed. But now she can watch me crash and burn from the comfort of her living room or bathroom or wherever she's at. But anyway, so the story we're going to read is called Robbie Wants His Wings. And I know people don't really care about, like, when you explain the story. This isn't fucking VH1 storytellers. But there's 3 things I need you to know going into the story, okay? 3 things I was trying to do when I wrote this. Mostly I was just trying to have some fun, okay? I'm trying to make you laugh. So the humor in there is it's supposed to catch you off guard. It's crass. There's a lot of dick jokes. Some masturbation jokes that I'm pushing as jokes, but they're really not jokes. You'll know it when we get there. And that is to make you laugh and to lower your guard. Once your guard is lowered, I like to think that I said some things that'll make you think. Okay. I wanted to give some of my religious views, which are unorthodox, I guess. And I also kind of wanted to, without pointing a finger, kind of point out some of the things in religion that I disagree with. So when we talk about homosexuals, when we talk about suicides, we're going to talk about all that stuff. Get ready. I disagree with some of the things that maybe religion has taught us or that religion has pushed. If not religion, certainly the church. So, yeah. Oh, Leishan's here. Leishan Veris. Very, very talented writer friend of mine. I'm reading all the comments and I'm like that. I highly recommend you check out his stuff, his Facebook page, his books. He's on Amazon. Watching that guy go live like every night dressed as a crow inspires me to go live dressed as a fancy hobo. So there we have it. But I'm going to get into the story, because if I just read the comments and keep saying hi to people, we'll never get anywhere. Okay. So the name of this story is Robbie Wants His Wings. Can you guys hear me? Am I coming through okay? I'm going to move this dead center. Okay. And then I don't know what we're supposed to do. I guess at the end, if you have any questions or comments or hate, let me know. Robbie Wants His Wings. So then, are you an angel? I thought you guys were supposed to have wings. And where's your halo? How am I supposed to believe you're an angel if you don't even have the halo and wings? He smiled slyly. Although between you and me, you're certainly pretty enough to be an angel. She rolled her eyes and shook her head in mild annoyance. So in other words, you're saying because I don't look like what you think an angel is supposed to look like, I can't be one? Are you trying to insinuate that I'm a liar? That's also an interesting stereotype you're perpetuating, Mr. Ormsby. If I were a white woman with wings, halo, and a bra by Victoria's Secret, would you have believed it then? His eyes widened and he started to stammer. No, not at all. It's not a black thing. It's a wing thing. A wing thing? Yes, ma'am, a wing thing, I swear. That's it. She looked at him for a moment with her mouth drawn tightly in contempt before breaking into a grin. Relax, Robbie. I'm just messing with you. You wouldn't believe how many times I've been asked that question. I'm not sure why everybody gets so hung up on, as you put it, this wing thing, but yes, I'm an angel. Technically, so are you now that you're here. She winked. No wings necessary. He laughed nervously. He'd only just arrived and he was already getting into trouble. She continued on. So congratulations, you made it. That means you've been judged worthy of Paradise Eternal. You're one of the good guys, so to speak, and you'll be surrounded by good people. Once you step through these gates, you're going to see a lot of family and friends that you haven't seen in a while. It can be a bit much to process, so if you get overwhelmed or if you have any questions, seriously, that's what I'm here for. Feel free to ask me anything. Well, to be honest, I'm just happy I made it. I know I broke a lot of rules along the way, the cursing, the drugging, a little bit of lying and theft, not to mention all the premarital sex, and some of the other guy stuff. Guy stuff? Yeah, well, there was a little bit of masturbation, but not that much. Although, come to think of it, I thought that was an automatic deal breaker. Oh, no, not at all. When God created man, the Almighty had enough foresight to know all of the silly things they would do with their dicks. Really? I always felt like my dick was under so much scrutiny. Thou shalt not jack thy beanstalk. And hey, for what it's worth, I didn't really do it all that much. Here and there, mostly on special occasions like my birthday and weekends. Sometimes on a Monday because, well, Mondays, am I right? Maybe the occasional Wednesday just to spice things up. All in all, I think it was probably like a normal, healthy amount. And by the way, are we allowed to say dicks? I only said dicks because you said dicks. Isn't there a rule or something about no dicks in heaven? She shook her head slowly and leaning in closer to him, she half whispered, and yet here I am, talking to one. He was so shocked by this that it took him a few seconds to fully grasp what she had just said. His ears quickly turned red in embarrassment and his mouth hung open in shock. They stood there for a few seconds, him blushing and embarrassed into total silence, and her shaking her head with a look of annoyance. He was startled when she erupted into laughter. Robbie, Robbie, your face. She was laughing so hard and for so long that he couldn't help but to start laughing alongside her. Her infectious laughter finally started to die down, and wiping the tears from her eyes, she took a deep breath to regain her composure before continuing. I'm so sorry, Robbie. You know I didn't mean it, right? I'm just messing with you, I swear. He nodded with a trace of a smile still on his face. Yeah, I know. I'm not going to lie. That was a good one. So, I'm guessing dicks aren't a big deal? It's fine, you can say it, although you seem to be especially preoccupied with the word, which may or may not say something about you. One of God's greatest gifts to mankind was free will, and there's still quite a bit of that here in heaven as there is on earth. And language, fortunately, falls under free will. The Lord is more concerned about the intentions of the words than the actual words themselves. She smirked. And I've seen your file, Robbie. There was nothing normal or healthy about the amount of time you spent engaging in, what did you call it? Guy stuff? Well, I mean, there's no real way to gauge numbers, so if that's your opinion, then... Oh no, she laughingly interrupted. That's just the facts. Your numbers were off the charts. He sounded defensive. But how do you even get those numbers? And I don't think I was really doing it any more than anybody else. She sighed. No, Robert, shaking her head. You were doing it way more than anybody else. Your numbers were the highest, by far, in all of time and creation. You spent so much time pulling on that thing that it's a wonder you didn't manage to snap it off. At one point, we were all very worried about you. There were talks of even having to go the route of divine intervention. We actually assembled a task force and everything. They stood there for a moment, him with his head hanging in shame and her with a look of concern. Finally looking up, he said, Well, at least God doesn't seem to be as strict as I would have thought he was. Thank God. I mean, well, you know what I mean. I'm guessing he has a good sense of humor? Yes, God has a remarkable sense of humor. With people continuously referring to her as he, she kind of has to. She? Really? She. Really? Where do you think the term Mother Earth comes from? Or Mother Nature? God's gender reveal was a bit of a surprise, but he felt like it wasn't especially mind-blowing. Why couldn't God be a woman? What's the difference between man being made in his image or being birthed in hers? Still with me? Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead. So this will be where you'll spend all of eternity. Reincarnation is something you may be interested in a little later on, but for now, this is it. All our new arrivals tend to measure time the way they did back on Earth for the first few years or so, and I can tell you right now, eternity is a concept you'll greatly struggle with. Eventually, the concept of time will cease to exist for you, as will many of your other urges and instincts. Such as? Well, as far as urges, I should tell you that there's no sex in heaven. That's the one I get asked about the most, other than the, are you an angel? Heaven is love, and love, believe it or not, is something far greater than just the physical. I understand that sex is how you humans express your love, but love, real love, is so much stronger than that. There's no pain, no hunger, no racism, no politics, no anger, no lust, no envy, no drugs, no alcohol, no fighting, no money, and no lots of other things that I'd be hard-pressed to remember. There's no survival instinct. There's no fight or flee. But seriously, no sex? She sighed. No, Robbie, no sex. None of the other things I just listed made an impression on you? You should be asking why these things aren't present in the afterlife, but I'll tell you anyway. The reason is, simply, there's just no need or desire for them here in heaven. Freed of your earthly shell, and eventually freed of all those pesky earthly concepts, you'll just find yourself, well, it's hard to describe. You'll see for yourself soon enough, but the best way I can put it is, here in heaven, you'll find love. You'll love and be loved in a way that you can't possibly yet fathom. You were created from and instilled with such unimaginable love. It's a light of sorts, although people generally refer to it as the soul. Your time on earth has warped that love and dimmed that light, but this is a place where your soul can be what it was meant to be. Well, that sounds beautiful, but I have to ask. Music? Please tell me there's music. Music is, to some degree or another, a man-made concept, no? Yes, but it pleases the Lord. And it's not completely man-made. Music has always been a collaborative effort. She gave you the gift of language and voice. You've taken that and created melody. So though music might be considered man-made, God is very much a part of it all. And I think that shows in the music itself. The feeling you get when listening to a Carly Rae Jepsen record or hearing Al Green's falsetto. Paul McCartney's voice, the horns in any Stax or Rolling Stones record. How would you describe those things? He thought for a moment and then broke into a grin. Heavenly. She winked. Exactly. She particularly likes that one Leonard Cohen song, as she believes it was written in tribute. She absolutely adores George Harrison, and she's a really big fan of Belinda Carlisle. He nodded his head solemnly. He started to sing, slightly off key. They say in heaven, love comes first. Instinctively, they harmonized. You make heaven a place on earth. Beautiful, Robbie, just beautiful. I think you'll be quite pleased with all the music here. There's always some sort of concert going on, and just wait till you see some of the performances. Warren Zevon and Kurt Cobain are headlining tonight. She laughed. I could talk music for all eternity, and though we have all eternity to do so, there's still some other things to discuss. Do you understand everything so far? When you take a break, look at the comments, right? Oh, good. I'm already on the prayer list for church. This is good. I could use it. He nodded a slow yes before quickly shaking his head in an emphatic no. I do, but there's just so many questions. If this is heaven, then what about hell? Who goes and why? How badly do you have to mess up before you're denied entry up here and find yourself, he pointed to the floor, down there? Where are we even? In the clouds? And how is it that I still see myself as having a body? He just couldn't resist. How is it that you have such a great body? She tried to answer his questions, but he was on a roll. How am I able to feel any emotions at all? I'm not complaining because I feel great. But how? There's no more brain, and the brain is what processes feelings, so how? And what about animals? What about dinosaurs? Are there dinosaurs in heaven? And why keep tabs on how much somebody masturbates? Who, exactly, is asking for that kind of information? Her eyes widened with every question. She looked at him thoughtfully and started to speak before quickly closing her mouth. She was silent for a few moments, then, finally, wow, that's a lot. Some of those are particularly good questions. That last one was a little silly, but I'll let it go on account of the compliment you tried to sneak in. I'm not sure how much help this is going to be, though. Every question I answer will probably lead to a million more questions. A lot of these things you'll figure out as you go. They're more easily realized in feeling than in explanation. You've got an eternity of learning ahead of you, so take your time with it. Try to just go with the flow, so to speak. But let me try to answer as best I can. As far as location, we're really not anywhere. We're in a place far outside of what you think of as space and time. We're standing with 1 foot in and 1 foot outside of creation. You see it as amongst the clouds because that's what a part of you expected to see. That's also why you still see yourself with a body. Your mind, for lack of a better term, is still very much stuck in an earthly way of looking at things. You're still trying to apply logic to it all. And of course there are animals here. Where else would they go? Hell, maybe? I always thought my wife's dog would end up in hell. She shook her head emphatically. There is no hell. His eyes widened in disbelief. No hell? But there's got to be a hell. And why is that? Well, if there's a heaven, then there's got to be a hell, right? Light and dark, hot and cold, heaven and hell. Balances and counterbalances, or whatever you'd call it. Isn't that the one universal truth? And without a hell, where do all the bad ones go? The murderers and whatnot. She smiled and leaned in closer. Everything must have an opposite? Many things do, and much of that is by her design, but nothing says that there must be. Just think about what I've told you about heaven. Pleasure without pain. Love without hate. God is the only universal truth, Robbie. Everything else is just fortuitous. Heaven belongs to God, but hell is solely man's creation. And just think about how offensive the idea of hell would be to the Almighty. God is the creator and the all-knowing. Why would she create you only to knowingly have to condemn you to eternal suffering? No mother should ever abandon her child. If she's instilled her goodness in you, then this means that you're born inherently good. Your experience on earth may do something to spoil that goodness, but nothing can completely extinguish what she put in you. If you fall too far from the grace she gave you, then no, you won't gain entrance to heaven, but there's no condemnation to hell either. Typically, you're born again. She's a merciful God, despite what some would have you believe. Reincarnation is her idea of a second chance. Often the worst of sinners are born again into a life that directly counters the sins they were guilty of. Somebody who was greedy in life may be born poor. Somebody who hurt others in one life are almost guaranteed to experience some sort of pain in their next life. This goes a long way in teaching humility. In a second life spent wronging the rights of the first, a soul may then find entrance into heaven. And if not, like if they mess it up the second time around? She smiled wryly. Well then, that's what purgatory is for. Think of it as a few thousand years on time out. Then they're born again and get to try once more. He shook his head in silent disbelief. There was so much to think about. Is there one true religion? No, but religion itself is a concept, and a concept that was created by, care to guess? Man? That's right, Robbie. There's only one true God, but the interpretation of her varies from religion to religion. Different people give her different names, but really, she's nameless. And believe it or not, she never much cared for the worship or sacrifices made in her name. That's, more or less, just man self-projecting. Can we visit Earth, like as ghosts or something? If I wanted to see my wife and kids or an old girlfriend in the shower, could I? She laughed. You can visit from time to time, but there's a whole slew of rules and conditions that go along with that. Stalking someone in the shower is definitely against the rules. We'll try to arrange something for your wife and kids, but moving in and out of creation is difficult, to say the least. Most times, if we're able to make it happen, this is done through dreams. So is there anybody that doesn't get to come? Suicide victims? Gays? You know, the Bible, her eyes narrowed. The Bible, is that still a thing? His eyes practically bulged in shock. Well, yeah, of course. It's more than just a thing. Oh boy. She's going to be very interested in that one. There's a lot of history here, and this would take a while, so forgive me for not going into detail. But let me just say that the Bible is not necessarily the best interpretation of God's Word. I think she appreciates the effort, but I think she also resents some of the misinformation being spread. And I know she doesn't care for a lot of what's being done in her name. Some of what was written happened as it was told. A lot of it never did. And almost all of it has been exaggerated to some effect. Call it hyperbole, call it a book of parables, but to call it absolute truth is more than a bit of a stretch. Man writes books, not God. When it comes to the Bible, she's a co-author at best. God created the plot and provided the characters, but man created the story and handled all of the edits. Many of her words have been misinterpreted. Those misinterpretations are then reinterpreted, and so on until you end up with something vastly different than what the Creator first intended. Ooh, look at me, dropping jewels. He shook his head in disbelief. Is it that big of a difference? The fact that you're asking me about suicide victims is proof in itself. Think about the term, Robbie. Suicide victim. Nobody else would ever think to punish the victim. Why would God? You're all God's children, and if that's the case, think of how many brothers and sisters you have, how much family you're surrounded by. That one of her children should feel so alone in the world that they would rather force an exit by their own hand is terribly sad. She grieves for them. Why would she condemn them? Why would she condemn them? I would just drink more beer. It's fine. Fuck, I forgot. It's a good story. And your sexual orientation is of little to no concern to her. She knew what you were when she created you. She knew where you'd go and what you'd be. Much of it goes according to plan, although again, your time on Earth may have a way of altering those plans. But she's all-knowing, not mostly knowing. There's not a single outcome that she hasn't accounted for. Who you love and how you love them doesn't offend her. She's much more offended by those who spread hate in the name of love. He shuffled from foot to foot nervously. He had another question about the Bible, but was hesitant to ask. What about Jesus? Was he real? Was he truly the Son of God? I'm not sure I understand the question. We're all sons and daughters of God. You're a son of God, Robbie. Yeah, but I'm not the Son of God. She looked directly into his questioning eyes. Let me ask you a question. Why should it matter? Let's try to look at the story of Jesus Christ objectively for a moment. Let's look at it as just that, a story. What would you consider to be the takeaway? To love one another, to treat others the way you want to be treated, to be kind and humble and forgiving. Now, if I tell you that he was the one true Son of God, I suppose you'd make it a point to try to live your life by those words. Oh, of course. And if I told you that no, there was no Jesus Christ, would that change your mind? Do the teachings become any less valuable? Do you suddenly abandon those ideals? No, I don't. She smiled with an almost maternal patience. No, and you shouldn't. God wants you to believe in whatever you need to believe. God wants you to believe in whatever you need to believe in to bring yourself closer to her. If belief in Jesus is what helps you, then by all means. If you don't believe he was real, but you still follow what he said, then that's fine too. But when your beliefs are posited as truths, and you start to judge, or worse yet, condemn others who may not share those beliefs, you're actually moving further away from her. She nodded solemnly. Yes. Imagine her sadness at the evils you've inflicted on each other in the name of her and her son. The persecution of those who may doubt or question. She shrugged. They're still children of God. Honestly, they're just like any other child. Inquisitive and often questioning of things they don't fully understand. He was struck silent by the thought. After a few moments, she asked softly, "Do you have any other questions, Robert?" What about the end, the book of Revelation? It always freaked me out when I was a kid. Is that how it ends? How can it when there's no hell, and I assume no devil? That's correct. I'm not sure where that one got started, though it's certainly been around for a while. As far as the end of the world, when she builds something, she builds it to last. I'm sure it will all end eventually, as we all do, and I'm sure it will all be reborn, as we all are. And hopefully, second time's a charm, he interrupted. Well, more like the 346th time, but yeah, you get the idea. Here's what I don't understand, though. You've all made such progress on Earth. Science, technology, medicine, it's really quite amazing. But for as much as your minds have progressed, your spirits seem to have regressed. You should all be living in harmony, and yet there's such discord. With all your advancements, you should be living longer, and yet so many faces I greet at the gates are so young. What is happening down there, Robbie? He suddenly found it hard to look her in the eyes. It's a mess. Honestly, it's all just a mess. It's as far from a Belinda Carlisle song as you can get. I honestly couldn't tell you why. I never really thought about it until you asked. She shook her head sadly. How about the place? Are you guys at least taking good care of the home she provided? You mean Earth? Well, depends on who you ask. You see, some people think that everything is getting warmer. on account of we absolutely trashed the. Her disapproving look made it hard to finish. You know what? Can we discuss this some other time? You've been a real doll, and I really do want to thank you for everything you've done so far, but I just kind of, you know. She smiled warmly. I know, Robbie. You want to see them. And believe me, they're just as excited to see you. They're all there, just past those gates. Go. You and I will have plenty of time to talk about things. He turned to leave, but didn't move. He slowly turned to face her, and in a voice choked with emotion, he asked her, All of them? All of them, and they're waiting. Now go. He slowly walked up the stairs, and once at the top, he turned to wave at her before stepping through the open gates that towered above him. As the gates closed behind him, she chuckled to herself. Oh, Robbie, you were so odd. You were naive, you were too trusting, and you were practically a sex addict. And I'll never tell you this, but Pass the Super Salad wasn't as good as you thought it was. But, she smiled warmly, but you were one of the good ones. You're my son, and I'm glad to see you back home. The end. Anybody still there? Oh, no. Honestly, I can't tell with this thing. I can't tell. If you're there, say something. Or, I mean, don't. That's fine. So there you have it. There's my story about religion, which, if anybody's still tuned in, I would like to kind of talk about it because I thought, now I'm biased, right, because I wrote the fucking thing, but I thought it went deep. Alexa, brighten my lamp 100%. Let there be light. So, a couple things that I can think of that I did want to touch on. Obviously, I had to do something with music, right? No surprise there. I've said this before, but music, under the right circumstances, is like a religious experience for me. I don't do church. I can't get into it, right? But on a Sunday, I'll open all the windows, I'll crank the speakers, and depending on the song I have playing, it's the same feeling for me that you get when you go to church. You feel good, like you feel re-energized, you feel, I don't know, in tune, so to speak. So I did kind of want to hammer on the music. You know that suicide is a big topic for me. I've had the thoughts, and I've lost a few to it. And the idea just never sat well with me. Like, suicide is an automatic, you go to hell, do not pass go, do not collect $200. I meant what I said. That is kind of my questioning of religion. Is God is all-knowing. So you would think the outcome of your suicide, or the outcome of you as a homosexual, you as a whatever you might be, right? The mistakes that you make, the things that you do, you would think that outcome, if it's not predetermined, it's at least known, right? So again, just like I say in the story, why would somebody create you in their image to knowingly condemn you later on? I don't get it. And maybe because it's such a hot topic with me, maybe because I have lost people, the suicide thing, it doesn't show in the story, but there's a little bit of anger there. Like much of what I do, there's always anger behind it. But think about it. Like we said, the term is suicide victim. Victim. Anywhere else we would say like, hey, you don't antagonize the victim. You don't shame the victim. You don't punish the victim. So why would we do that for that? It doesn't make sense to me. Oh, Barbie. I don't know if you're the only one here. I can't see like a count. This is like new software. I've never used it before. This is where it gets good. This is where it gets boring for most people. But this is where it gets good because we can talk about religion. We talk about the story. So anybody that's still here, I'm very, very interested in your take. I'm very interested in what you thought of the story, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you thought. You know, was there anything that made you think? Was there anything that maybe changed the way you think or kind of swayed the way that you think? That's kind of what I'm trying to do with anything distraction action, but certainly with that story is you have your beliefs, you have your truths, you have your opinions, etc., etc. I'm not going to be able to change them. I don't want to change them, right? I don't want a bunch of people that just agree with me, because what fun is that? But if you're very rigid in your beliefs, if you're very rigid in your opinions, I want to see if I can't bend you a little bit. That's kind of what I do here at Distraction Action. As much as it's kind of silly and super salads and stuff like that, I am on a mission. That's just a small part of it. Oh, I'm digging the comments. Yeah, passion. Also a large part of what we do here at Distraction Action. Usually it's just the creepy sexual kind of passion, but every once in a while it's passion with a purpose. Which feels good. But that's what you're in for on Volume 2. Dick jokes and some depth. Dicks and depth. It sounds like those two shouldn't go together. But they do. I promise they do. So I do implore you to check out the book. Like I said, it is fresh on Amazon. I spent, give or take, about a year on it. I probably had it written in like 6 months. But it is illustrated. It is professionally edited, professionally formatted. This is not amateur hour on that one. It is a labor of love. I do feel like it's my best work yet. I'm proud of it. I would like to share it with people and get their feedback and see if there's not something that you can relate to in it. If you've lost somebody, I would hope, I wouldn't hope that you lost somebody, but I would hope if you have, that part at the end of the book, where he cuts the conversation short and he tells her like, look, I got a lot more questions, but I just want to you want to see all the ones that you've lost. I thought that's a universal feeling, having lost somebody, and then obviously you don't want to die, but there is kind of that comfort, like, okay, when this is all over, I'll be back with whoever it might be. For me, friends, grandparents, mother, father, couple pets. There's a comfort in that, right? That's supposed to make death a lot less scary. So I've rambled on way too long. Barbie, thanks for sticking around. I may do this again at some point. I feel like I got to actually sell books this time, so I got to whore myself out on camera. But let me know what you think in the comments. If you could share this, get it out there. I am very interested in people's take on such a sensitive subject. Hopefully I didn't offend. I certainly wasn't trying to. I was trying to have a little fun, and I was kind of poking at the hornet's nest, but respectfully. Always respectfully. So that's it. I'm Robert Ormsby. This is Distraction Action, and we're out. Once I figure out how to shut the fucking camera off.